Okay. Hi, welcome back to the Hornthrowers podcast. We are joined by a very special guest. For anybody who is familiar with the radio show that we host, this is a artist that we have played countless times now. We're really happy to have Sonja on the show.
Well, Melissa Moore from Sonja and Crosspitter. We've played Crossspitter a few times
Okay.
as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the first thing I wanted to ask was a funnier question. Where did the name Sonja come from? And my mum is also called Sonja with the same spelling, so she said, "Can she have her name back, please?"
That's funny. And I think sometimes people think that my name might be Sonia as well too. Basically, we we used to call the band Strange Nights when we had our first demo phase. And there was something where there's a rapper, Tech Nine, that has a record label called Strange Music. So his lawyer sent us like a cease and desist, and it was like this kind of like fight for a little bit that we didn't have the money to hire a lawyer. We took it as far as we could. So it's like, all right, our brand new band, we're not gonna sink money into the name. This is kind of a stupid thing. So um basically just something that we just wanted something that captured kind of like the energy that fit with the music we were creating. It's as many band names are probably, it's not very specific. It's like it's just trying to capture the energy in a way. And so far we feel pretty good about that. We feel that it fits with just the sound of it.
It's a very good explanation. So usually one of the things we first ask people is like to get a bit of background behind you. So like what was like your first experiences with music and like what sort of started you off music wise and stuff?
Oh, sure. I mean, I remember being like a really little kid and having a cassette player where I had like a Michael Jackson tape or something like that, and listening to that. And that's just like little kid stuff. And then the thing that got me into rock was probably around like 10 or 12, 10, 11 or 12 years old. This is literally true. Seeing the Wayne's World movie as a kid, I was like, yeah, rock and roll is cool. Even though it's like funny and like silly, I'm just like, yeah, this seems fun. And then like it kind of, heavy metal really wasn't cool at that time. Even I didn't care though, and just like myself and a group of friends like just got heavy into it and like started a band when we were super young. So basically, like as soon as I was like, I got my first guitar when I was 12, I think, and I've been completely obsessed with metal and rock since then. So, um, bands that I got, I mean, even like grunge bands and stuff like that. Like, it was just if it had a loud, like a guitar and was loud at first, like to me, it was all the same thing. And eventually, like, I started to tend to go certain directions with it. But, um, I still like, if there's a certain spirit, that's what I like. I don't have like, there's no rules or parameters for me besides like it being like real.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Like I think, like in some extent, it's something we talked about before about like kind of like usually within the context of black metal, because that's tends what we nerd out over the most. But like talking about how in the same way you describe, oh, that's punk, that's metal, it is just like a kind of like spirit that can translate to like other forms of art as well. It's not just confined to music, and it is, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Like, I mean, like, there's even like writers or something like that where it's like, okay, this like has the same energy, or no, it's not the same, but like this has a type of energy that's resonating with me, and that's like something that happens in metal or rock or whatever, even like, some synth music or whatever it could be. That can happen through a writer, that can happen through different mediums as well, too. I think that's the cool thing about it. That's why we're all here talking about it and being obsessed with it. Like, it makes us feel a certain way.
I mean, yeah, I think like that kind of leads on to one of the funner questions you wanted to, well, things that you wanted to mention about like about metal and like songs.
Oh, yeah, I was
like,
gonna say my favorite song on the album is Loud Arriver because I like songs that are about metal or about
Me too.
like rock and roll. It's like I don't know what it is. I just
yeah, like so many trad bands do that so well, like
yeah,
Skullfist and things like that, where it's
yeah.
like heavier than metal. Or, yeah,
We
it's
want we
super
want to
fun.
get a show one day that's just all songs about metal. We've not got to we've
We've
not
been slowly
planned it
collecting
yet.
them,
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm
Like,
super glad that you acknowledge that because I love that too. Like, I think like directly acknowledging rock or metal in your lyrics is one of the most it just resonates with me. Like, and I guess the first time I really like saw that was like the Manowar song Metal Warriors, which I like the first time I heard, I'm like, oh, like it threw me off and I didn't like it. But then like a few more times hearing it, and I was super young when I got that CD, yeah. So eventually I'm like, wait, this is great. It's like it doesn't give a fuck. Or wait, can I say that on the
Yeah,
you
we
go
live
for it.
we can swear on the
Yeah,
podcast.
yeah. Fuck, fuckity, fuck.
Okay, good. It's like, yeah, it's just like we love heavy metal, we love rock and roll. Let's like directly acknowledge that, I think. And I think a lot of people are afraid to do that, and I think it's a very like powerful move to actually say it.
I'm so glad
Not
you mentioned.
casual.
I'm so glad you mentioned Manowar first, because that was the first band. Before I mentioned Skullfist, blah blah blah, I was gonna be like mention Manowar, but I know you hate Manowar.
I just find them really cheesy. There is something funny where I remember watching a live thing of them once, and there's a guy who looked exactly the same as you, like identical. In one of the videos, it's like, wait, is that you?
I mean, I wish I'd seen Manowar live, but no, I absolutely adore them, and I think that they have had much more of an impact on the scene in general than people like to admit. I think, because I think even a lot of the bands, like especially like the trad bands and some of the epic doom bands that you love, I think are way more influenced than by Manowar than
Yeah,
even
no,
they
I
probably
do.
let on.
They're okay. I don't know. I've never really been a big Manowar fan.
I don't think I can convince you to like Manowar. If you don't, and I wouldn't even try to, but I think, my way of encountering the band was kind of in a vacuum. I had no idea anything about them, just kind of hearing the music, and it's just like these vocals and some of the lyrics like are just untouchably like amazing. And it's really the other stuff doesn't matter. It's the vocals are so good, and some of the lyrics are just so direct that some of them are like, it's like,
Horrendous, yeah.
but at the same time, it's like the fact that it is so just like uninhibited, there is something there. Like we have to acknowledge like the real stuff sometimes. And yeah, a lot of it, like, there are, as any band gets over time, like there's a lot of stuff that's not going to be as potent or whatever. But I mean, for me, like, I just have to acknowledge when it's powerful.
Yeah, I mean, Eric Adams has an amazing, like, just one of the voices that could just kind of make their hairs on the back of your neck stand up. But I'm just happy I get to nerd out about Manowar.
Every podcast a band gets mentioned, and you just are like, oh my god.
It's the autism intensifies.
I could talk about Manowar the entire time if you want. Like, I really could.
No, I promise we will get
we did
on
it. We did it about summoning in the one with Tribunal.
Yeah, and a bit of Blind Guardian.
And Blind Guardian as well.
Great vocals there too, yeah.
Yeah, I was really heartbroken to find out that Manowar actually don't take themselves seriously, because I thought that the best bit about it was that everyone was in on the joke but them, and they were taking themselves so seriously. There was no hint of irony, and it kind of made the joke funnier. But I've since found out that they are fully aware of, like, because a friend of mine knows someone from the Magic Circle and stuff like that, and yeah.
Wow.
I don't want to shatter any like perceptions or anything, but Sonja started as a Manowar cover band.
Really?
Literally. Like, well, I mean, like with the intent to like, be writing our material, and not really the intent to play that stuff live. But basically we're like, okay, let's start a band, and let's play songs that we admire, and like kind of just get into the DNA. And I think the first few songs we did were Manowar songs. I couldn't sing at all. So it's like, all right, this is ambitious. And of course we throw in like Judas Priest, some other things like that too, just to kind of be like, all right, this is kind of our baseline here. Like this is what we're not trying to be some band that is like some new band. Like this is what we're after, is like this kind of energy and like power in the music, sort of.
No, that absolutely like gets communicated through. Like I love artists that wear their influences on their sleeve, and you very much do that. And like, because I was like, before, like, because we were like discussing your riffs, I picked up my guitar before and was like, no, that really sounds like a bit like 2 Minutes to Midnight, and then like started like trying to figure out, it was the riff to Loud Arrival, wasn't it?
I think so.
So it was doing that thing where it was like barring.
It was when I went to the lodge before we started, and
yeah, you came downstairs and I had like my Jackson out and was just kind of like, no, I can figure this out.
Definitely a lot of Maiden references, particularly in that song. And like, there's actually a lot of vocal parts where I like almost directly ripped off Bruce Dickinson vocal parts, and just like subverted them a little bit. But like that's certainly like a starting point for a lot of the music for me.
No, you could absolutely do a lot worse than like taking Bruce Dickinson
Yeah.
as a.
Well, remember I was reading in your interview with Decibel, and you were saying about the struggles of learning to sing and stuff like that. Do you find it hard when you do it live? Because some of these guitar parts sound really complicated as well. So
Oh,
I
it's
can't play and sing at the same time.
yeah, it's like insane. Like I don't like I have to really like spend time to like get it down because it's not like two separate things. Like singing is one thing and playing guitar is one thing, but it has to become one unified thing together. So to get that with like out having to think and to just like be able to feel it and vibe on it is like that's kind of what I've been doing. So the only way to do that is just to play. So we have been booking like tours and shows and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean it's not that's not like automatic. That's like it has to become automatic for me, and it is, but it's definitely like there's a process to get to that for sure. Because like I don't want to walk on stage. Same with like making an album. Like we have no interest in like doing something that's okay. We want to bring like real heavy metal fire. You know what I mean? So like whatever we got to do, whatever I got to do to make that happen. That's what I have to do. I mean, that's just it.
Awesome, yeah.
I was like, that was yeah. Jog my memory. So yeah, so we said about booking shows as well. Obviously, I know you've got Crossspitter as well, and I keep seeing all the time on Instagram like all the shows you're booking with both bands. Like, how are you juggling both of those things at the same time?
It's crazy. Sometimes, sometimes for a festival, like we can do both bands there, which is good because it's the same drummer for Sonja as Crosspitter.
Yeah.
So, and both bands are a three-piece. So between the two bands, it's four people. Um, musically very different. So there's no like conflict there. But for example, right now, Crossspitter is about to go on tour in like 2 weeks, and then we're going in the studio to record an album. So it's like, all right, for the next few weeks, I can't really like. We still have had Sonya. We've worked on Sonya things, but it's like, okay, like there is like a little bit of compartmentalization that does have to happen to give each band what it needs at any given time. But like, luckily, we're just we cut out everything else to just focus on these things. So it's a lot, yeah. But I mean, we would have it no other way. Like this is what we want.
I might be like jumping because that's jogged my memory as well. But like, I might be like grasping at straws here. But is Sonya is that a Red Sonya reference? Because I know like obviously so much of like trad metal is based around like sword and sorcery.
I mean, a little bit, yeah.
words.
Like like, and that's kind of a thing. It's like that kind of stuff like is exciting in a way, but it's like we're trying to give it like a different energy as well too. So it's like it's not going to be directly that. It's not going to be the way that it's been there before. And we keep talking about Manowar. It's a little bit of a Manowar reference too. Like, Manowar is highly influenced by like Conan the Barbarian types of mythologies. So like, Sonya like being like kind of related to that in a little bit
Yeah.
of a way. Like, it's a little nod to it. It's not like direct or anything, but we're like that's a nice bonus to the name as well too.
Awesome. Yeah, I thought that might have like somewhat influenced the name, but again I wasn't sure if I was like just grasping there or not.
If you've done that every week, you go, "Is this name like this?"
Usually, like I think I've been
Yeah.
right each time. Like
I know.
I'm just a big
I
nerd.
don't dive as deep into the names.
No,
But,
it's more just like you've seen how many fantasy books I own, and
Yeah.
just I've wasted my life.
Well, you're more into the sword and sorcery sort of stuff than I am. I'm pretty middle of the road with that stuff. I like Lord of the Rings, and that's it.
Yeah.
So, with the album as well, I read as well. You said there's been different reactions to it depending on certain people. Like I know, because obviously my reaction to it has been very different to yours. Like as a
Yes.
trans person. So,
Yeah, that has given. Like
yeah.
I can tell that's had like an added level of interest, and I think it's like made you feel a lot more confident in.
Yeah.
It's that kind of like. I don't know if representation is the right word,
I
but
think
kind
it's
of like being able to see
yeah.
yourself as the person
I
on
think
stage and
not necessarily that.
yeah,
Just
okay.
more having there's things that are relatable there. So what sort of reactions have you had from different sort of people? How's that been?
I mean, yeah, I think you're both saying it, where it's like, besides just like me being who I am and like playing the music and doing it, like, and the songs are not like always direct. They're not really direct. They're not like, here's a song about like this, but
Yeah.
it's like they're 100% orthodox heavy metal, I think, with like proper like creation and crafting of them, like under like the rule of heavy metal, while reclaiming it for, not I guess I never, it's never been lost to me, but like declaring that heavy metal is mine in my way without compromise, sort of. So it's like my experience, whatever, is within like the lyrics and the vibe and that kind of thing, in a way that, I mean, my life is a certain way, definitely because I'm trans, and that's there. So it's like I'm not hiding from it. I don't like want to deal with it, but it's just there. So it's like I'm like I have to like deal with it. So it's like it's part of the art of it too, but without slapping it on top. It's like built like through like the actual raw materials of heavy metal and rock and like goth, and like we don't follow rules, but like we don't follow the rules because we make the rules. And I really think that, well, I mean, like, I feel confident in that. It's like I don't think there's anyone that can tell me what heavy metal is. Like I mean, so I just think it's ensconced in it in a way that's a little bit different than I've been able to see. And it's like, okay, this has to be done. It's kind of like, I definitely feel like I have to like do it a certain way. It's like I have to do this, like whether I want to or not, and it is uncomfortable for me a lot of the times, honestly. It's like,
Yeah.
I mean, just dealing with this, like, you know, this is great, but like, I'm just like talking with so many people and just so many people calling, and it's great. And it's like people are usually like supportive in that kind of thing, but it's like, just putting something out there that it's like I wouldn't just talk about this day to day to like total strangers all the time, but like that's like what this is. That's what it has to be. So um I just think it's like I've like talked about it in like an analogy where it's like this is like a fire that just has to burn through the world and like just leave fucking ashes and then like come in and do something with it. Like that's all I can do. Like um I'm too far gone. I'm on just a heavy metal mission. So I'm gonna draw them all out. I'm gonna burn it to the ground and then come and build something that's like all I can do. But so I just have like a very like in front of me kind of view, like just like keep it going kind of thing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
very cool.
it's interesting that you were talking though about like I know that you kind of like went back and corrected yourself, but saying like about like reclaiming metal for yourself and things like that. Whereas I think the expression of those kind of like queer identities though has always existed in metal. Like you've got like the likes of like Halford, and you look at the lyrics to something like Beyond the Realms of Death, and nobody can tell me that that song is not about like growing up gay in like a working class neighborhood in Birmingham. Like when
Yeah.
you and that experience, and like he's even said it himself, like when you're like going like people who were shocked in like the early 2000s when he came out, maybe go back and read your Priest lyrics again with this knowledge and stuff, because like it's just kind of like more of a point of saying that these queer identities have always been a part of metal, and it's kind of like I think important for people to realize and acknowledge that.
No, it always has been, I think. And I think, with Priest is a good thing because I compare that. It's like, all right, literal, like, at the forefront of it all, like the band that fills up an arena and says, "We're here for heavy metal." To me, that means something, and they rule. But like, even the lyrics, which so many of them like are obviously like super like gay or whatever, like at the time it wasn't overt like this is what we are, like looking back, yeah, and like, oh yeah, I can see that in it, maybe somebody could see in it, but it's just like I don't even have the option of it not being that way because like I can't show up anywhere and like hide that about me. So it's like this is like right up on the front of it and overt,
Yeah.
Not in a way that like, I guess I'm just trying to make that work. Honestly, it's like I have no choice but to make that work. Being like overtly like this, like I can't hide it. Like I can't cover it up. It's like known about me. You can see it.
Mhm.
So it's like I have to put it into real heavy metal right on the top, right on the fucking packaging. So it's like that's what it has to be. I feel like that's a little bit different. Like I don't really know of a precedent of that in heavy metal. So I mean, maybe there are some certain examples, but like I mean, I also like I just have had this sense where it's like kind of have to just do this with like my learned heavy metal knowledge of my life and rock and roll knowledge of my life. And yeah, that's kind of in the lyrics of Loud Arriver too. The song where it's like I hear the heavy metal and I fully understand the wisdom I have stolen like a weapon in my hand. Like, it's a nod to that kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's definitely a very empowering thing, metal in general. Like it kind of like I don't want to get back onto Manowar, but it is especially when you're
No, please, I love it.
but especially when you're like a teenager and maybe feeling like a bit of an outcast and stuff like that, and then you're hearing like lyrics about like brothers of battle and things like that, and kind of
Yeah.
it makes you feel like you belong, and it makes you feel like powerful when you have no power, and it kind of it is empowering, and it's cool.
Like
Yeah.
we're doing what Manowar. I mean, we're trying to do what Manowar did for me and for us. Really, I mean, that's. I'm not going to say it's a blueprint, but it's definitely like a beacon. Like that creates like this sense of like go for it. Like if you got to go into your boss's office and ask for a raise, it's a good idea to listen to a Manowar song like 5 minutes before that and like deal with it that way. Like
Oh, absolutely. You will feel more like those men in loincloths will make you feel as confident as maybe those men in loincloths should not have felt when taking those photos. But yeah.
but the craziness and the over the topness and the overtness, I like it. Like even like I don't really listen to it, but like even like some of that like super like tough guy hardcore stuff, I like that about that too. It's just like so over the top, like how they're like, respect and all this like crazy stuff where it's like ridiculous. Like, and I don't even mean ridiculous in a bad way. I just kind of just like don't even like try to like just like the distilled like get into that distilled energy somehow. Like I think that's pretty. There's something there. It's potent.
It's sincerity, I think. Like I think that's something that like metal and does really well. Like it's that kind of it really without pretension kind of like just is what it is and kind of
Yeah.
There's a lot of pretense in metal
Oh
too.
yeah, in certain ways.
true. It was more
Hard to
like
put a blanket comment that metal doesn't
Yeah.
have pretense. Like there's like mostly bad bands. Like let's
yeah.
be honest. Like,
Yeah, I think it was more that kind of like the general kind of like the general culture, and it does definitely have like loads of problems within it and stuff. I just kind of meant like more like um
I think that's why I
there's
like
no
songs
irony.
about metal
It's
because they're just fun and like metal is fun to me.
there's just like it's just that kind of thing of like it's kind of like being absolutely unashamedly that thing without irony.
Yeah.
yeah.
That's kind of what I was trying to drive at, and maybe pretense was like the wrong word to pick.
No, I think it got us there. And like, yeah, without irony, being that thing without irony, that is a very good way to describe it. I like that.
Yeah, I think it's very funny anyway. It's like,
Being
there's certain
unafraid to be ridiculous.
there's tropes that you need as well. It's like if you hear a death metal song, it doesn't have the whole like OUGH with the umlauts on it. I don't need that. I want to hear that song. It's like I don't know. It's just fun. I
Yeah,
think.
no, like 100%. Like it's something that I've not found that react like nothing other than metal's kind of given me that reaction. That's why I've it's been a mainstay in my life. I don't know. Yeah. So it was really stream of consciousness. And kind of,
You went off on
That's good.
one there.
yeah,
That's where we get to the real stuff. Yeah.
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 Kind of why we prefer to do like podcasts and like long form stuff, because you can kind of actually like explore ideas rather than just kind of like going to a band and being like, oh, how's the new album, how's the tour, and the same questions you've been asked like 100 times. We can maybe yeah.
So yeah, with talking about like metal as well, and we touched about like Rob Halford and stuff. Like I think there is something inherently like I think a lot of queer people I've seen have been drawn to metal. I don't know, or like rock in general. Like I know when I was a kid, like and I see in like
Oops,
ooh,
sorry.
see an AFI, and I'm like, well, I can look like I know Davey Havok's not trans, but looking at Davey Havok and going, oh my god, I can look like that, and like it's very like there's something like freeing about metal. I think I don't know, like you know too. I think.
Yeah. No, like it's definitely like even before like I came out and whatnot. Like it was kind of yeah, it was kind of like a thing. Like I even before like kind of maybe I even admitted it to myself, I was like gravitated towards figures like Alfred and stuff that I found
Yeah.
very inspiring.
I mean, for me, it was completely oppositional. And like, honestly, like when, acknowledging, the path that my life had to take, kind of just like, this is like an impossible path, an impossible thing, two things to reconcile. How am I going to do this? And that's still like an ongoing process. So it's like the spirit is there, but the reality of it is more just like, that's why I keep saying like, just like blazing a fire to like burn it all down kind of thing. But yeah, I'm seeing like good I'm seeing, the people come, so that's good. But yeah, my whole perception of it was not like, oh, this is, I don't know, it's something that it's like, how do I reconcile these two things, which like are hard to do for me, like how, and it's just about how I feel about it too. So it's not like how like I don't know. So it's like coping with reality, you know?
Yeah. Oh, no, I think so. Like, it's poetic, but like, I really like what you were saying, like kind of like blazing that trail and stuff like that, and yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, I think because there are things with metal. Like I know there's a lot of like the like quote unquote toxic masculinity parts. But I think we're quite like into like black metal that's like underground, and there seems to be like loads of groups like where it's very like accepting, and it's sort of maybe it's obviously I'm a part of it. It's like finding those small things within metal, like obviously like the Priest lyrics and stuff like that, and just drawing on them, and maybe I don't know. I don't know where I was even going with that really. I
No,
think
yeah, I mean there's like a primal like element to it, and I think particularly with like black metal stuff, like the good stuff at least, where it's like, I mean, if you tap into that directly, I mean, that just resonates. Take away like anything that like some people might be like, that's just like kind of outside forces, like the actual like what it is and what it does and the reason that it is a thing with you. And like music doesn't exist in a vacuum. It is people and like whatever. So like just listening to music and not like relating to others about it, that doesn't make sense to me. Like music has always been like a social thing for me as well too. As much as it's a personal emotional thing, it's like I just end up being around people that are on the same musical level as me. That's just been like my way to connect with people. That's my closest friendships are with people that I collaborate with musically. That's just like how it ends up happening. um so
Like,
but the sound of it though, yeah, there's something in there that like definitely the purity of the sound within there, like that's like we connect with that. So it's like it's going to be exciting to see how people take that authentically and make that into things that have that good energy around it too. It's got to be done well though. I mean, you can't just like take it and say like, oh, I stand for this and this is what I am, this is what I represent. Like if it's not good, like it's not going to be
yeah.
good.
oh, like yeah, like a good 60-70% of these like left-wing black metal bands that were about are shite. Like, gosh, like realistically, like they, there is like a 30% of them that are really good
Yeah.
and that we kind of like really dig, but like the amount of ones that we've like trolled through on like
I think things just
Spotify and stuff like
necessarily I think as well with metal being a very personal thing, there's things that I like which other people won't. Like the new Metallica song I thought was garbage. I just think maybe this is a bit of a reach, but I think Metallica may be too Hollywood A-listy. to play metal anymore. I don't know. I think it's
Oh
like
yeah, once they cut their hair before
Yeah.
loads, they were dead to me, you know?
yeah. Well, as a teenager, I was like,
Very
they've
upset.
cut their hair in this era. No.
I know, it was such a letdown. It's like you're literally our like heroes. Like, what are you
Yeah.
doing? Like,
With the new Metallica song, when Lars is the best part about the song and Lars is bringing the energy, I think maybe
Yeah.
the first riff that played in it, I was like, oh, it sounds like something my dad would play. Like when we've had band practices, my dad's come in
Oh,
and tried
no,
to play like, I don't know, like dad rock. Even though my dad's into metal, like my dad's seen Carcass and Wrexham, like when they played and all that. And my
Sorry,
dad
I'm
introduced me to Motorhead and stuff. But yeah,
Sorry, I'm just remembering that.
yeah.
Anyway,
I
that-
won't
that's a-
trash Metallica anymore because I know a lot of people really like them.
no, what
I like them. I
I
like
thought
early
the one that they
Metallica.
put out before that, Lux Eterna, was a bit better and had that kind of. I see what they were reaching for and trying to have that new wave of British heavy metal inspired sound, which was like a big thing for them when they were teenagers. But it felt a tiny bit soulless, and then the one that they've just put out now is just, yeah, not great.
I mean, I wouldn't expect Metallica to put out something now that's gonna work for me. Like
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just wouldn't.
Yeah, like I honestly like most of those big bands. Like the only band that I think, the only like relatively big band that still has like a decent output for me is probably Priest,
Yeah.
because their newer albums have still got like moments on them that I'm kind of like. Granted, it's not gonna, it's never gonna be as amazing as like Defense of the Faith or Painkiller or something like that, but
Or
it's at
Screaming for
least
Vengeance.
yeah.
Screaming for Vengeance is my favorite.
Yeah. I'm torn between Defenders and Painkiller. Out of interest, what's your favorite Priest album?
Probably the one I listen to the two that I listen to the most are probably Sad Wings of Destiny, and Painkiller was like the one that I first really embraced. I do like a couple songs on Ram It Down a lot. As non-traditional as that is, the song Blood Red Skies on that, which they played on the last tour where they played in Philadelphia, I was like, oh my god, this is on the set list, awesome. It wasn't good live, which was disappointing to me, but the recorded version I think is incredibly good. Actually, I was listening to that song on my headphones when I started to come up with the lyrics for the song Loud Arriver. Like that was direct influence to me for the song Loud Arriver. Like there's just something about that. Kind of, it's like this post-apocalyptic Terminator kind of scene that it kind of paints.
No, like I can see that, and I think like the Ram It Down Turbo stuff, like it's kind of like doesn't particularly translate live. I think because I might be wrong, but they were like trying new things out in the studio. They were having issues with their drummer, so they had used like a primitive drum machine and stuff like that on it, and maybe that's kind of what gives it its charm, and that doesn't get
I
recreated
remember
live.
you were going to give me once your copy of Turbo because you hate it, but I really like Turbo.
I
think because it's got that little touch of 80s cheese to it as well.
depends how drunk
Well, it's
I
like
am.
new wave, yeah.
Yeah.
That was like when every band had like new wave elements. Like ZZ Top like had new wave elements, which Judas Priest it's like every band has like one or two albums that got a little new wavy, and I kind of like that, you know?
I mean, like Rush carried that so well. Like, sorry,
Every podcast as well, you bring up Rush.
they're amazing. But I was just bringing it up as a thing that they were like very influenced by new wave stuff, and then when they tried to strip back their sound away from all of the really elaborate stuff with like silly time signatures and like 20-minute long songs, that was what influenced them. So kind of sorry.
He's knocked his microphone over.
Yeah.
With
They
too
got
many hand
animated
gestures.
defending Rush.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, I just love the consistency of the videos on Turbo as well. Like
Like the way
with the stop motion in it as well.
and
I think
it's one
magic.
ongoing story, and yeah, that's cool. I do like Turbo, but like it depends on how much alcohol I've imbibed. Like it is Turbo Lover is a go-to karaoke song for me for sure.
I mean, the song is great. The whole album, like, it doesn't like keep my attention.
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of where I am with it.
I'm just gonna play it to you later and
Yeah.
make you like it. Through repetition.
You're like, yeah. Do you have any other questions? Because you've got like
I
you
did have a
you
list.
have a
What
comprehensive
happens
list.
is usually I'll write my list of things we want to discuss, and then through the conversation anyway, those things get touched on. I'm like, oh no, what's the next thing? But what we usually do, obviously at this point there now, is so we've asked you to pick like 5 songs or like half hours worth of music that we're going to play on the show play on the radio show when this gets released. So we're just going to ask you to talk through your picks and how they've inspired you and stuff, and yeah, that sort of
Sure.
thing. And we really liked your picks this week as well, because they were like a lot of what we play on the radio.
Yeah, like it was like it was like
We'll let you go on before we
yeah. Sorry,
Let me pull up the
spoilers.
tracks. Yeah. It could have been. I mean, I love the songs that I picked, and I could have picked 5 different ones as well too. Like there's a lot that are just like kind of my top tracks, but these are all like fall into it as well too. So I can go in order of the ones that I gave you, if that's
Yeah,
the way
that's
to go.
perfect.
That's great.
Please,
Yeah. So the first one I have was Devil's Plaything from Danzig 2. I think that's the best song on that album. I think Danzig 1 is the best Danzig album, but 1 through 4 are all great. I remember the first time I got Danzig 1, I was like, this rules, but like, why is there like no distortion on the guitar? Now, like, I try to emulate that like 100%. It's like my number one like thing that I try to rip off from a guitar sound standpoint. It's just like, I just love how it hits. But Devil's Plaything, just like the lyrics and the melody of it, like the first time I heard it, it just like resonated with me and has stuck with me over time. And I just think it's applicable completely. Really simple. Yeah, it's great. I mean, what can I say about it? It's just, it's a good song. Definitely the best one on that album, I think. So then I picked a kind of interesting King Diamond song, Behind These Walls, off of The Eye, which that album definitely sounds like it has a drum machine on it. But it's just awesome. I just remember being a kid, with my friends who we all had like, a symphonic black metal band together when we were like teenagers in the 90s. And, we would just like literally have a camcorder and like make like videos of like short like horror movie or like funny like skits of stuff like that. And my friend's like, okay, here's a good song for this one scene we're gonna do. And he just put on that song and it was just like, yo, this is like the best song ever. And like we already liked King Diamond and Merciful Fate, but it was like that intro harpsichord, just like I'll never forget that moment of like, this is so sick. Yeah. And then, so I love that song. Actually, I think The Eye is a great King Diamond album. People don't talk about it that much. I think it's a killer album. Then the next song I did was Still Life by Iron Maiden from Peace of Mind.
Yeah, that was a really interesting pick.
Yeah, it's kind of like, it's not like it's sort of a deep cut, but it's not like the deepest cut. Like, I always kind of, my 3 favorite Maiden songs are kind of all deep cuts. And maybe I have more than 3, but like Still Life from Peace of Mind, Deja Vu from Somewhere in Time, and Purgatory from Killers. I think those 3 songs are just amazing. I also love The Klansman from Rock in Rio. Like the original version's fine, but the one on Rock in Rio, I like literally get chills when I listen to it.
It's just I do think that Blaze Bayley deserves a lot more credit than he's given, but it just hits different when Bruce is singing The Klansman.
Yeah.
Like, especially like kind of freedom, bit like that.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's like Braveheart, but like, which is awesome. But like, and there's another Maiden song I love too. There's a bunch, but those are awesome. Like, I think I love Be Quick or Be Dead. I think that's a killer song from Fear the Dark, even though the album's not that great. And then The Prophecy off of
Seventh
Son of like that's really good too. So there's a ton of good songs, and my favorites by Maiden are usually not like the known hits. But Still Life I think is awesome. It's just like there's no point to it. It's just kind of like this like supernatural tale, and it's like kind of like negative. It feels good. It feels like a cool horror movie with like good atmosphere, and it just rocks.
And it like
Oh,
starts with like,
Die with Your Boots On is a great song too. It's like,
it's amazing.
yeah, and like I remember being like younger, and my friend would like make fun of that song because he thought it was cheesy, but it's like, as someone who loves Manowar and stuff like that, it like
Mm.
works in that respect. You know, it's just like,
Yeah.
yeah, like
It's like got like a very simple premise and kind of like, you know, like message, but it's like, yeah, it's like kind of like raise your fist in the air, like if you're gonna die, die with your boots on.
I was having a conversation with another friend the other day too, and we were just talking about like some bands fuck and some bands don't fuck. Judas Priest fucks, Iron Maiden doesn't fuck, but I love Iron Maiden. But it's like, yeah, so like, you know, I like with Sonja, we try to take some of like, there's a lot of stuff I like about Iron Maiden, but we're trying to make that fuck, you know what I mean? So Still Life is a good song. So then I did Emperor, Towards the Pantheon from In the Night Side Eclipse, which I consider to be the best. It's probably the best black metal album, the best synth black metal album.
Yeah.
The best black metal album that actually has synth is definitely that album. Um, the fact that there is burning churches and murder surrounding the lore of that album, which is what I was hearing about when it came out, and a friend got that like from like an underground mail order thing. That was like very intriguing about it. Of course, we all look back and we say, "Oh, you know, Faust, the German Emperor, murdered a gay man." That wasn't really the. I don't. At the way that it hit me at the time, it's like that was not like part of it. It was just like murdering for the sake of murdering, just being evil, acknowledging evil and embracing evil, and this is the sound of it. And
That's
that's how it kind of resonated.
that. I mean, like that kind of whole evil for the sake of evil concept is something that, for all of its problems, that I kind of think the Lords of Chaos movie hit on really well. The kind of fact that they were like all these edgy teenagers that was just kind of trying to out evil each other and kind of, yeah, I liked that depiction,
Yeah.
and it kind of rubbed the mystique off those figures
I
as
just
well.
like it because it really annoyed Varg as well, didn't he? When they just made him a bit tubby, and he just got really angry about it on Twitter.
It's the bit where he's
Yeah,
like,
I mean, like, and you know, that's a depiction of that, like that's gonna work for like an audience right now.
Yeah.
But I think like, you know, that aura about it, you know, just like, wait a minute, what about just like evil and darkness, like something that we always just try to avoid? Like, what about that? Like, is there something there? Um, there's nothing. There's just that, but like, I don't know, it just takes your mind in a different place. And the song's great.
yeah, no, like the whole album's just like amazing. But that whole second wave has like, I wouldn't be able to pin down my favorite from that era. Probably maybe like gun to my head, I'd probably say the first Ulver album, but that's because I just think that album has an incredible
Yeah.
atmosphere.
I find it crazy how many of those bands have now just gone in a very proggy direction, like Enslaved.
And-
Ishan's obviously like got his turtleneck and really into prog, and
Yeah, that so it all kind of lost me, like, you know, after like 99, 2000-ish. It was like, okay, these bands are just trying to be rock stars. Like, there's not like this like real like energy here. And like there's a lot of imitators for sure after that, some of which maybe have something okay, but overall, I think it would like most of it doesn't click for me now. So it's like I can only go with like what like actually resonates with me, and like, you know, the spirit that I feel from certain types of things, you know, it means something, I guess, to me, but you know, I can't, it's hard to rationalize it. It just is what it is. And there's like, you know, that's like why it's like, oh, you know, this like these bad people. It's like, well, that's part of it. I mean, that's what makes it, you
And
know,
I think
something.
it's definitely got like, especially like for like those albums like drip with atmosphere, and also like there's something to be said, like at least for the misanthropy, and maybe where you're kind of like feeling that yourself and like listening to those second wave black metal albums, like it's definitely something that you can connect with. less so like maybe like the politics that those people held and stuff like that. But
Yeah, I mean, like it's not political. No one's listening to this for politics. This is like
yeah,
energy, like
Yeah.
and like everything's more complicated than anyone's gonna make it out to be. Like that's and I feel that way too. I get annoyed when people like are just like this. I don't know. I'm not gonna get into that. But anyway, next song.
yeah.
So I love this album by Old Man's Child, Born of the Flickering. So the song "Funeral Swords and Souls," I think it's killer. Great riffs. The guitarist for that band, I think, is really good. Great at writing riffs. Always a big influence to me. And one of the things I particularly love about that song is like the blast beat where it has the hi-hat like with the accents. It's really good at the intro of that song. I like when stuff does that because it's like there's something about that blast beat where it's like it's atmospheric. I mean, it's aggressive, but it's also atmospheric. So if you're able to create some sort of fluctuation within that like maintains that atmosphere, to me that's like powerful. And I feel like that blast beat that starts the song does that, along with the good riffs. Great riff writer in that. The next song I had was Dissection from Storm of the Light's Bane, the song Soul Reaper. My favorite song on that album is Night's Blood. That's the song that as I was being introduced to this underground stuff in the 90s, like hearing Night's Blood like rehearsal or demo version is the thing I was like, this is the best thing I've heard. Like that's the best thing. I think Storm of the Light's Bane, they call themselves death metal. You could say it's black metal. That's the best black metal album of all time, I think. I don't think you can top that.
I think it rides that line between like almost like thrash and black metal, to be honest. Like especially
this
Night's
thrashiness,
Blood.
yeah.
Yeah, I absolutely like adore that album, and yeah, it just slaps. Like that's the song that Night's Blood that taught me how to trempic melodies on guitar, and yeah, have like
And they used to talk about it in interviews as well too, where it's like they create this like somewhat symphonic element through the guitars. There's no use of synth. It's just very masterful the way they use melody and rhythm in it.
it's the use of the harmonic minor scale. Like I think that's kind of like the key to it, and it's something that
There's harmonic minor, there's natural minor, and it's primarily those two things. And they go to different things as well too. But there's like they have this like they do this thing where they oftentimes go to this one note it's not really that off, but it's off enough that it's like that's just giving it the magic kind of thing.
it's the dissonance that creates like, and it's something I like shamelessly rip off when I write stuff, but like it's that because I think it's in E standard, so it's like between the D sharp and the E standard, that kind of like diminished like dissonant sound that creates, like that. It's something that practically every riff I write tends to include, just because I'm shamelessly plundering from that album.
Yeah, just enough like tension. So that album is the pinnacle. Anything that happened after that is complete. That's like Metallica low to me. Like, it's like it's useless. Like Dissection and interestingly, I've compared Dissection and Wasp to each other. I think the first two Wasp albums are just amazing.
Yeah.
And then it just loses it completely for me. Same thing with Dissection. First two albums. And like, they're like unreleased stuff too. I like The Black as well, which was like a project with the same members. First two Dissection albums are untouchably good.
Yeah, the album that he released after he got out of prison and everything was just it was good, but it didn't quite have that kind of anarchic kind of ferocity to it, like the first like Somber Lane and Storm of the Light's Bane had.
It just sounded like a Bad In Flames album. There was like guitar solos and stuff like that. It wasn't doing it for me. I tried, I tried to give it a chance. It's like I feel like people were only listening to it because of the name. Like it didn't have anything to do with, I mean, musically at least, the sound of the old stuff. And whatever, I'm not going to hold someone and say you have to do something the same as what you did before. I'm just saying what I'm going to spend my time listening to.
100%. I think like that's kind of one of the fun things in metal, is like having like hot takes and strong opinions about music and like sharing them with your friends and getting into like lengthy discussions about that kind of stuff. Like I find that very fun.
Yeah.
Like, even if some people like can mistake it sometimes for elitism when it's not meant as such, it's just more like no, I want to chat shit and have fun talking about bands.
I mean, the reason we obsess so much over metal, which we all do, I mean, like, why are we all here, is
Yeah.
because like there's this like intensity to it, and if you let it get diluted, then it's gone. And like, why am I so obsessed with this like meaningless thing? It's like, no, there has to be the potency. So, if something doesn't have that, which the later dissection didn't have it for me, like that like waters down, the reason that I'm here. So I can't spend time or waste time on that or waste energy on that. I mean, there are stakes to it too. It is fun to debate it, but it's like if I was like considering being in a band with somebody and like they love new dissection and not old
Yeah.
dissection, I'd be like, I don't trust your taste.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I
And
don't think
then
anyone that likes newer dissection but doesn't even like old dissection. There's
I've met people.
yeah,
Really?
that's very strange to me.
That's really weird. Like, I don't get how you could listen to like, Somberlane or, Where Dead Angels Lie and not. Okay, whatever.
Yeah, it's almost like do you even know what like music is? Like what
Yeah.
So then I had one that we couldn't do because it was like, too explicit,
Yeah.
but it's okay. From the same album, Bewitched, Pentagram Prayer is the album. And the
Mm.
song that I ended up selecting was Hallways to Hell. It could have been any song on this album. There's not one particular song that I love so much more than the others. The whole album's great, great riffs. It's from the 90s. Definitely sounds like a drum machine on it. I think there's been this like huge like enthusiasm towards like this like sort of black thrash thing. And not saying that they're black thrash on this album, but like they really had this good combination of riffs that really felt like a combination to me of like Merciful Fate, Venom, and Bathory, like in a kind of thrashy way. Like I feel like
Yeah.
they got all that into it, like just like slight melodicism mixed with like the dirty like satanic energy of like Venom, and like Bathory, old Bathory has that too. So that plus like good lyrics, just like direct intent, like satanic murder, ritual, blood sacrifice, the whole thing very Venom like. Um, you know, not like at a time when that wasn't popular really, at least in America. So it's just like, yeah, this is really good that like somebody's nailing it and killing it. That album's great. Their other albums are okay. That album I think that's the one for me. Great guitar sound too.
Yeah.
Also, I haven't gotten around to listening to that yet, but when you described it as a sweet spot between Merciful Fate, Venom, and Bathory, I was just like immediately like the second this call ends, I'm putting that album on.
Yeah, I listened to it when I was checking through because the reason we can't play it, we're very careful on the explicit stuff is so
We have a community
James from
radio
Hell Ripper
license.
suggested
God.
666 by Nuclear
Toxic
Holocaust, yeah.
Holocaust.
So we were like, oh, it's explicit. Let's just go through every single Toxic Holocaust song was explicit. So we just like it was me. It was my fault. I just picked at random, like War is Hell. Well, all right, cool. Put it on. I'm not a massive Toxic
You'd never
Holocaust
heard
fan.
the
I've
song
only heard
before,
like
yeah.
Nuke the Cross, and like got to the radio. You messaged me,
And like my friend, who lives in America and is like a really big fan of the radio show and like listens every week, they were like, hang on, so you couldn't play this song because it's explicit, you just said, but the song you just played said 8 times in repetition, war is fucking hell. And I was like, did we?
and I had a bit of a breakdown. I was like, oh my god, no. But then it was
found
it was
funny.
fine.
The
It
station
was
manager
fine. It's
found it
because
funny, but yeah.
it's community radio. It's got stricter standards because the UK is just stupid standards wise.
Is a weird
And
one.
so we can play like as I said, Chopped in Half by Obituary, talking about like murdering people, but we can't say an F bomb. So like at least one.
Yeah. Like we can play like stuff that has like the most obscene descriptions of like tearing human bodies apart, but don't drop an
Don't
F-bomb.
swear.
Yeah, like I just remember as a kid, like I had this. I love, I like a lot of different types of music, but I had a Murder City Devils shirt, and like I know my mom hated it so much because it said murder and devil on it. But I'm like, okay, mom, but like I have such worse things that I'm wearing that you're just like not picking up on. Like this is nothing compared to like what your child is projecting into the world. Like I don't know.
Yeah, like I had a Machine Head shirt that had like Machine fucking Head written on the back of it when I was like 14, 15. My mum ended up throwing that out. Yeah, I could wear all these like death metal shirts with like horrendous things on them that she was just blissfully unaware of.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
The
it's like,
obscurity protects us.
Yeah, well, I remember going to my grandma's house. She's really Catholic, and I was like, notice I'm sat around the dinner table. I noticed I'm wearing a behemoth shirt with an upside down cross. Let's just cover it up. The
I had
worst
a
one. Sorry.
go on. I have one
The,
after you.
the
Yeah, yeah.
worst one was I had a Gamma Bomb shirt on. This had it was off the new tour, with after the whole like Trump fans going after Congress and all that. I had loads of stuff referenced that. I had like a sign that said ACAB, and I had to actually go up and talk to a policeman about something. And I was like, let's just put my cardigan over where it says ACAB and just stand like this the whole time. So that's the risk you sometimes take.
I mean, they're gonna see it everywhere. But when I was like super young, I had like a cast or something, something where if you have a cast for like something and people like can write on it or sign on it.
Yeah.
So like, of course, my friends are just like 666, kill Christians, like stuff like that, and like I think my mom and my grandmother thought like, kill Christmas. That's so awful. Kill Christmas. I'm like, I don't know. My friends did. I'm like, I'm so glad they thought that said Christmas.
Yeah. I remember being like in a store with but my ex partner, and she's there with her, and she had kids as well, and like she was wearing an Electric Wizards shirt, and she was like, I don't know why people are so judgmental. They're staring at me. They're giving me dirty looks. And I'd like stop them like, you're wearing a shirt that says legalize drugs and murder on it.
Yeah, yeah.
Maybe that's why. But yeah, I've got like 100 of these stories that would just like fill up the podcast.
Yeah.
Like,
But I think it's all become more normalized and common. Like I think having like a shirt with a scary symbol on it or something like that is not like it's not like a thing in society that causes a lot of problems, at least like the parts that I'm around. Like I think maybe there was a time where it's like, oh, like this person's wearing a shirt, having to me and my friends frequently where it's like, this is like, you're like, getting like, suspended from school or something like that because of wearing something, or, getting the cops called on us or something like that. But like, just literally from what we were wearing, I don't think it's so much something that you'd be wearing now. It's probably more just like being a trans person in public is more likely to get you like,
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
yeah, like the Satan thing. I don't know about the US because I know that sort of like religion has more of a foothold there, but like the whole Satan thing just isn't provocative anymore, like at all.
No, not in this
Like,
country, really.
like
yeah.
yeah,
In this country, it is more just wall to
Turf
wall,
Island,
turf
yeah.
island, horrible. Yeah.
But
I mean, it's like it's some people want to use it as like provocation or whatever. I think it's more in terms of like, is that like terrifying? No, to like some certain scared sheltered people possibly, but I think a more important like energy and message to kind of bring into the world is just like who cares about like this. I'm not going to say who cares, but like personally, it's like, okay, projecting Satan, like I love it in a lot of music and stuff like that. I love the energy of Satan, whatever that means to anybody. But I think just like anti-Christianity, like unacceptable to be Christian is like, that's like, I'm just trying to like condense the energy of like the necessary energy for survival into the right kind of like package, I guess you could say. Like, and I don't want it to be lost in being blended with like, like sure we should all be having fun, absolutely, but I don't want it to be like obscured with a half-assed message or whatever, a half-assed intent. I think like that, that pure distilled energy, and in some things, certain, my band Crossspitter, for example, like
I was going to say that, yeah.
it's like this, there's nothing there but just total disdain for Christianity in a way that, it's not just, it's unhinged, but it's also artful, I feel like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
not
I
wholly
relate
undeserved.
wholly to that sentiment because I went to Catholic school. It's because I've noticed as well, there's like religious people in my family are very tolerant. I think a lot of the time people, I'll just say like bigots, they'll use it as a way to sort of validate their hatred, when really it's like a lot of
They
people
can pretend to be right, to be doing horror, like, you know, like they're actual like hateful kind of thing, but like have like the good intentions that kind of mask that. So
Yeah.
like I know that in the US, like the Westboro Baptist Church does that a lot, where they like will use the rhetoric that it's about love what they're doing because they don't want people to burn in hell, blah blah blah, all this shit. You know, when no, you're actually just using it to justify bigotry.
Yeah, I think it's like, so on Christmas Eve I was doing a last minute shopping, and there's just like these hate preachers in town just
Oh,
using Jesus as a way. They're basically were just shouting loads of transphobia about, and then having like one of the women that are with him coming up to me going, "Here's a leaflet for Jesus. You want?" I'm like, "I'm not interested." "No, you need it." It's
Jesus
like,
loves
I
you.
don't
Yeah.
care. Yeah, so saying Jesus loves me, and I'm like, I don't care.
I
I
think
think,
the reason
yeah,
they do that is not to convince anybody. It's like they like
yeah,
feeling that everyone's against them. It makes them more like reliant on each other because they're antisocial. So they're not going to convince
Yeah.
one person to come into their thing.
yeah,
That's for them to be more codependent on each other.
That's what I said at the
yeah,
time when we saw them, that they were doing it as well. Like it was like I think the guy was getting like a power trip from it, because he was like, you know, being able to spew all this like bile into a microphone
yeah.
and stuff like that, and see that reaction from people. And I think it made him feel
Yeah,
powerful.
but it's like, the thing is, it's like they must know that him shouting like loads of transphobic stuff into a microphone in public, he's not going to convince me to not be trans. He's not going to change that, and he's not going to change anyone's opinions either, because people were heckling and calling him a transphobe, like
Right.
members of the
Like,
public.
yeah, yeah. It's just
Which is
like for
actually
their
a nice
insular
feeling.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I think as well, Christianity very much, like mainstream like Christians, and especially with the right in America, like the Christian right, they rely on that sort of, you know, oh, we're the outsiders, we're the ones being victimized, whilst they're
Well, yeah,
literally with power projecting that on people that don't.
yeah. Well, like the Trump administration was literally like so close to like implementing like a theocracy, pretty much, and then it's like,
Yeah, I mean, they want to be victimized so bad. So,
Yeah,
with Crossspitter, it's like, all right, let's make them into victims.
yeah, like I mean,
yeah,
like
I dig
your
that. Yeah,
dad's come out with stuff like,
We're
you know,
giving
about
them
like
what they
how they're
want.
the most oppressed minority in the world
yeah,
and stuff like that, and it's like, no, you're literally not. Anyway,
yeah. That's going
yeah,
deeper, but yeah, I think that I do like that with the whole Crossfitter thing. I really like the imagery with like the sort of like grainy, like everyone's posing by the cross and that by the grave. I thought was really cool. Is that still going to translate to, I know you said you're making a full length. Is it going to stick with that sort of imagery as well?
I mean, so you're talking to me, Melissa, like Donna Violence is the guitarist for Crossfitter, so I can talk from like a
Oh,
third party
okay.
perspective. But like, I mean, we're aware of Crossfitter knows what Crossfitter needs to be, and it's not going to lose that.
Yeah, I'm
So
really looking forward to that when that
awesome.
comes out.
We will be blasting that on the radio for sure.
Yeah.
yeah, that's pretty cool. So Crossfitter has a 3-song demo right now, and we've been getting around. So it's going to be exciting to have that full length and just be able to just get out there and do it. And one of the key things about that for me is to go to the places that we shouldn't go. Like that's what I want. That's what it's about. It's about like directly facing the enemy and challenging the enemy and defeating the enemy and degrading the enemy. That's what it's about.
Does that mean you're going to be playing gigs in churches?
Yeah.
That would be awesome.
We did mention that about going up to the local church, parish church, and being like, oh, we want to put a charity gig on. And they're like, oh, cool. Yeah. And we just get like all of the most like
Next up,
overtly
Laughing Christ.
anti-Christian. Yeah.
I mean, I know. Let's be honest. Like, so many people who I know that are Christians are like the sweetest, nicest people, and like
Yeah.
would defend you and me and anybody in any situation, like family members, friends, like just like, yeah, like blah blah blah, and they're trying to reconcile these like evil messages that they're being given. Like, there's evil,
That are almost like
evil in a different way.
contradictory to the New Testament. You know, like when you actually
Yeah.
like look at like Jesus as a character that was hanging out with all the outcasts of society, and like, you know, like lepers and prostitutes and the
Yeah.
like, and then having a right-wing conservative spin on that. Like, there's this really weird thing, like, of Margaret Thatcher, one of our former prime ministers, used to
Horrible lady.
used to tell the Good Samaritan story, but make it that the argument wasn't about giving to charity or like actually helping people in need. It was like, oh, isn't it great that the Samaritan was so wealthy in the first place that he could do that, and made it an example of trickle down economics.
Oh.
Yeah, you can like, you know, these people are just, they're the best in the world at making things sound a certain way. I mean, they're better at it than me, they're better at it than you. Like, they're
Yeah.
really good at it. Like, there's something to learn from that. Like, we should be learning from them. Like, we should.
Yeah.
And like, you know, don't get caught up in like the hate. Use your own hate. Don't get caught up in their hate, but like admire their skill at propaganda, you know?
Yeah.
That's the kind of thing like that I find frustrating with liberals, is the fact that they won't do that. Like, you know, they take the moral high ground so much that, you know, they get nothing done, and like they sacrifice lots of things. You like, it's much
When I was
scarier.
a kid and I read comic books, I hated it when the hero wouldn't kill the bad guy. You know he's gonna come back. You gotta kill
Yeah.
him.
Yeah.
Exactly. It might hurt, like, you know, like you know, future issues in the future that you're trying to write. And
Oh
stuff.
yeah, yeah. They
Give up your morals to do what you have to do.
But then, obviously, comic book wise, Alan Moore did that with Watchmen, and Watchmen is like one of the greatest
Alan
comic
Moore,
books I've read.
Alan Moore did that with the Killing Joke, and most people don't realize that Batman kills the Joker at the
Well,
end of
that's debatable.
that. I side with Grant Morrison on that. Sorry, we're horrific
I know
nerds.
comic
Yeah.
books when I was literally a child, but like I was actually into them before I got into music. So that was like the last thing I was into, and then I got into like rock and roll.
Yeah. Well, it was a thing of why I was into music first, because the UK we couldn't get comic books. Then it's when I hit teenager and I'm like, in like what 20 something, 2013, when I got enough money to myself buy stuff, I was like, I'm just gonna buy these things, because now I couldn't buy them when I was a kid because I couldn't get them. Whereas now I can buy them on this random eBay shop. So
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
should we call that here? And like,
I think we have descended into comic books, and that will
we
just
have like
take us on a
there's always
journey.
digressions, but like this has been great, and I could hear you talk enthusiastically about metal in such like a reverent way for like hours. It's been like really fun.
So is there anything you want to like plug before we go?
Yeah, well, we're doing a Crossspitter album. It'll, you know, we're gonna start that recording process in a couple of weeks. It's gonna be savage, of course, and
Sweet.
Sonja and Crosspitter are gonna be around. Definitely like reach out to us or come check us out. Like, we're here, we're gonna do it. So
Sweet. If you're ever in the UK, we will plug the hell out of that tour.
And you should
Oh,
come play Wrexham,
Try and get like,
because
as
no one
many
ever
people
comes
as
to
you
Wales
said.
anyway. It's always like England. Like we've got to travel. We're gonna go see Undeath, Celestial Sanctuary, and Iron Tomb in Manchester on the 29th. So we've got to go. I've got to get the train. We've got to get the last train back, which the last train stops in Chester, which is like about 45 minutes away from us.
Probably
We've
end
got
up
to
having
spend
to pay through the nose for a
pay
taxi,
through the nose for a taxi to get back, but it's worth it. And then I'm in work the next day. So you just got to do what you got to do.
Being old.
the things that heavy metal demands of us.
Exactly. It's a pilgrimage. But no, awesome. Thank you so much for joining us. It's been really
Thanks
fun.
for having me. Yeah, it's been great.
Thank you.
Awesome. Take care.
I will
Bye.
do the
That's it.